Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. This is KLOS
Is
Noon Approved, and I am here with Nancy Wilson, who has
that
a
good?
great new album out called You and Me. And I'm really happy that she's decided to join us on the show. Nancy, it's great to see you.
Oh, good to see you again. It's been too long.
It's been a long time. It was New York City. I came to see you and Ann and see the band, and I came backstage to say hello after the show, but it's been a while. And, when I found out you were making this new solo album, I just said, well, I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. I love what you did with it. There's some incredible
Oh, thank
covers on
you.
there. You had a lot of your great friends play on it as well. And so I just
Yeah.
want to start talking about that. So, Nancy,
Okay.
tell me about the title track, which is about your mom, right? You and Me. Can you tell me
Yeah.
about that and the relationship
Yeah.
with your mom and how she's still really a part of your DNA and with you?
Yeah. Of course, I when I wrote that song along with Sue Ennis, our longtime collaborator, who did a lot of harp music with us too, but we had each written a poem for our moms, who used to know each other. We knew, we grew up together. So um, she had a poem called "Follow Me," and I had one called "You and Me and Gravity," which I wrote after I actually woke up from a dream of my mom one time, and it was like such a great feeling to like I got to see her again. I'm like she's out there. She's taking care of me. She's hovering and she's up there somewhere in zero gravity where we could have this conversation, through our own DNA in a certain way. And so it turned into this lovely song, the hybrid song that both Sue and myself wrote together. So Sue actually sings on the song with me, and so it's kind of like two daughters, talking to their mothers up in the beyond.
Yeah. It's amazing. So let's talk about that. I mean, talk about your mom and with your family and your parents. When you started doing music, you and Ann, I mean, I've seen that incredible documentary, but was there a lot of support from your home and your community and back in those days? Because you guys were really trailblazers. As far as I was concerned, not only did you rock, which was so good, but I mean, you were, coming out in a world of rock and roll. And a lot of times I felt that people unfairly thought that females didn't rock, and you guys certainly did, and were such a great band. When you let your parents know that you wanted to be in a rock band and you had been playing music, what was their immediate reaction? Were they extremely supportive?
They were always supportive of things that we knew we wanted to do. There was a saying at the time during that human potential movement of the late '60s and early '70s. There was a saying, "Follow your bliss," right? And so they were counselors at our church youth group. Very relevant stuff going on, open-minded stuff going on. Um, and they were really amazing people who knew that we started really, really as kids. I mean, I was 9 or 10 when I started to play the guitar. And so we started making little bands together and we sang a lot, and our whole family sang a lot and heard all kinds of music in our house, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, classical, opera, electronic music, you name it. We were into it. So they knew that we were competent little players and that we were probably destined to do something in music. And so they were, yes, very, very supportive. But the one big warning was, okay, when you get out there in Tinseltown, don't forget how shallow it can be and how people can want to change who you are. So, whatever you do, stay who you are, which I thought was like the best advice in the world. And especially, of course, then what happens is you go out into Tinseltown and it kind of changes who you are. but then you kind of have to regain your footing again. But, uh, but yeah, they were really, really supportive. They said follow your bliss, and that's exactly what I felt like I got to do my entire life, basically.
I think it's fantastic, because you and Ann having, been together all this time, still making great music, still playing live, and just kicking ass. And I just think it's a fantastic thing, So let's talk about more songs on the new record. I love some of the interesting covers that you did on here, which were, you did Daughter, of course, which you had, I think, done before, right? The Pearl Jam song.
Yeah. Yeah, that song was an assignment for a film called I Am All Girls that's coming out. Actually, now it's coming out May 14th, finally. But I did that song before the shutdown for that movie, which is based on a true story about human trafficking. And I liked that song for that film because I thought the lyrics were so powerful, especially from a woman's perspective too, where some of the lyrics go, she holds the hand that holds her down. And, that kind of tells that story about, the plight of more women than you would even imagine, globally that are dealing, girls and boys that deal with human trafficking.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking problem. And I'm glad that, people are not only bringing attention to it, but people are also trying to work against it, which is so important, Now
Right. It's just raising awareness. Yeah.
absolutely. So, on one
Yeah.
of the other, you did the Cranberry's Dreams on the record too, which was very cool. Tell me about
Right.
choosing that because it was very sad that we lost Dolores so young, and I thought that was a
I
great
know.
choice.
Yeah, Cranberries were great and she was great. And I guess according to my hubby Jeff, who knew her, she was really a sweetheart. Um, we were driving in the car around, Sonoma County area in the back on the through the woods and through the trees, through the redwoods, and we heard that song on the radio. And Jeff said, "Well, that would make a perfect duet for you and Liv Warfield, who's in my other band, Roadcase Royale. Um, we opened for Seeger together. We did a bunch of shows together during Heart's like hiatus time, and she's just a sweet friend of an angel person. And I knew I needed to find the right song for her to make, her cameo on this album, and that just easily turned into the perfect song for us to do together. She's actually going to join me for a concert we're putting together July 9th in Seattle with the Seattle Symphony at the Benaroya Hall, which is a beautiful performance art place. Big pipe organ in the back, built for sound, all wooden. And she's going to come out and sing some stuff with me for that show, along with the band from Seattle that is mostly from Heart that played on my album as well. And she'll be able to pull, out with her on board. I'll be able to do some of the Heart stuff too, like we did in Roadcase Royale, our last band together. So we'll be able to do Crazy on You, and we'll be able to do Barracuda and What About Love and These Dreams and stuff like that, because she's going to be there with helping me because I can't do all
Yeah.
those. I can't sing that high.
That's great, though. That'll
Who
be really
can?
cool. So people will get a real cross section of all the different stuff that you've done. Now, you also on the record
Yeah.
with Sammy Hagar, you decided to do Simon and Garfunkel's "The Boxer," which is a really nice version of the song, and it's such a emotional track to begin with. Tell me about choosing to do that.
Well, I've done that song really all my life. Every living room, every stairway, every echoey spot we could find. And then on the last Heart tour, the last huge Heart tour, we did 58 shows. Um, I was doing that all that for that whole tour. And people were. It's such a good sing along because it's like lie la lie. That's all you got to
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah,
So,
right.
so I thought, oh well, somebody from the record company said you got to put that, or actually management, Red Light Management said, please put that on your album. Please put it on your record. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And then when I was looking for like a guest star, to kind of feature on that song, because it needed an update of sorts, right? So I gave Sammy another more rocker kind of a song. He goes, that's pretty expected for somebody like me to just sing a big rocker. What else have you got? So I said, what about something really unexpected like the Boxer? And he's like, I love that song. And so, so he we put him in there, and it just sounded so cool and different. With he was an actual boxer, see, and so when it talks about the story of the boxer in the song, and then you get to the chorus, he is the boxer in the song. So he's like, in the clearing stands the boxer, and it's Sammy Hagar with his
Yeah.
fists up, So it
Yeah.
kind of works in a cool way for the song itself.
I think it's great. Yeah, I want to talk to you. One of my things that I love too about the bonus tracks for the album. You picked some other songs. One of my favorite songs is Steely Dan's "Any Major Dude Will Tell You." It's just such a great. It was a non-single. Well, it was a B-side of Ricky Don't Lose That Number, but it was on Pretzel Logic, and it's just this
Oh
incredible
yeah,
song that I love.
yeah.
And when I saw that you were doing it, I was like, wow, what a killer choice. I just thought it was so great. Talk to me about that song, your relationship to that song, and what it means to you, and doing it.
That song, that song's always been like one of my all-time. I wish I could sing this someday kind of a song.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not like a heart type of a song to begin with, but I've always just coveted the song because of that great thing Steely Dan has, which is that tongue in cheek. It's like there's some poor nerdy dude that the hip guy is trying to hip to the heartbreak he's trying to go through.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, don't worry about it, dude. Any major dude will tell you it'll all be okay. You know, um, but it's got this like once removed kind of New York tongue in cheek thing that only Steely Dan can do. That I've always worshipped.
Yeah.
I've always worshipped their ability to do that kind of thing. Like only Steely Dan does that thing.
Yeah, they do, and it's there's always
Yeah,
there's some sarcasm in some of the songs, but there's also like in that bridge, I can show you all, tell you all I know, where to go to what to
yeah,
do. That you can try to run, but you can't hide from what's
yeah.
inside of you. What a great lyric! I mean, it's just so cool. And then the other
Oh, I
two,
know.
yeah, it just that always gets to me. I love that. Also,
It's like tender. It's like a tender song in the guise of a cool guy
yeah,
song.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly. And the other two bonus things you did were both McCartney related. Bluebird, which of course was on Band on the Run, and Fixing a Hole, which is just such a one of my another great track that people don't bring up a lot, but it's such a classic from Sgt Pepper. So tell me about doing those as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, for Bluebird, there was a Seattle benefit going on for out of work musicians. And so, being from Seattle originally, um, one of my Seattle buddies, Jeff Fielder, said, "Would you be interested, in just putting the song together with me, something like Bluebird, so that I could put it on the virtual show that can raise some money for the out of work musicians in Seattle." So I did that, and I also did Any Major Dude for a similar cause, and I and Fixing a Hole as well with the same guy for the same causes, various Seattle causes. One of them was for a ball a venue, a small venue that's famous for Seattle musicians to want to play. And so I just did a bunch of Seattle songs for Seattle benefits, which turned into the bonus tracks.
Yeah, so good, right? I mean, it's amazing. Just like I love things when whether it's a tribute to Alice in Chains or you know what I mean. I mean, there's just all those for all the great bands and the friends that you've made. There's always been such a great camaraderie of artists that love rock and that are musicians from Seattle. It's been that thing that I think's always been
Yeah,
an incredible constant. And I'm so glad that I've gotten to know so many of the
yeah,
artists there. You know,
yeah. It's a very supportive community of artists there, band people there, and after the 80s, we came back to our hometown Seattle, and we thought, oh, now the whole style of of rock has changed, and it's like Nirvana now, and it's Soundgarden, and it's Screaming Trees, and it's Alice in Chains, and it's Pearl Jam, and they're gonna hate us because we were the MTV, darlings with the big hair and the corsets and all that stuff, and really big hair, and so we went back there. It's right when Andrew Woods died from Mother Love Bone, right?
Yeah.
And our friend, my longest, dearest friend, Kelly Curtis, who managed them and went on to manage Pearl Jam forever as well, said, "Come to this house in Seattle, bring your dogs. We're having a wake for Andrew Woods." And so me and my then husband Cameron went there, and we met all those guys kind of in one big party situation, and they were the sweetest uh, guys, and there was not an attitude among them. They were like, "Oh wow, you guys, you did some cool stuff. Wow!" And like Jerry Cantrell's like, "How do you play the beginning of Mistral Wind?" And stuff like that. So they were like instant brotherhood for us, and it was such a relief.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And then, of course, they obviously were big fans of yours and have followed you from the early albums like Dreamboat Annie and the early stuff, Magazine Up, right? And grew up listening to those records. And, and then, of course, you guys had, that second wave with the Capitol years, too. But it's amazing because you think about they all truly love and speak of you in such high regard, which I think is so great. And a lot of them recorded at Bad Animal Studios too, right? So I mean, it comes full circle.
Oh yeah,
you
we built that studio there, like kind of unwisely, as it turns out, but financially not the best. But it's a beautiful room, and a lot of those guys all recorded some great stuff there, and and it was really the right thing to do, even though we lost a ton of dough.
Yeah.
But it became kind of a beautiful landmark for the city of Seattle, and I guess, proud about it after that. And they were, they were always just so wonderful to us.
It was amazing because just getting to go into that studio and do like an album special with Soundgarden or Alice in Chains for me was so much fun, and just go like, hey, it's Bad Animals, and of course I immediately got the reference and then got the history that you guys had built that studio, which was really cool. And
right,
so I'm glad it's a Seattle landmark, regardless. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
I mean, but
right.
it's incredible. I've got to ask.
Yeah, it's a beautiful room.
It's and it's just the sound in there, and it's just
gorgeous.
Everything about it is phenomenal. Nancy, Nancy, talk to me about the admiration of Zeppelin in that moment. After you guys did Battle of Evermore, you know what I mean, singles, Love Mongers, and Stairway to Heaven, Kennedy Hours, all the things. Can you talk to me about that? The experience with I know how much that you and Ed always loved Zeppelin. Can you talk to me about your first meeting with Jimmy and Robert and those guys, and what that was like, and that moment when you saw how emotional those guys got with Stairway to Heaven? Talk to me about it, because that was just what a moment that was,
Yeah, the first time we saw Zeppelin live was they were opening for like a fair, like a youth fair, festival in a little stage called the Green Lake Aqua Theater in Seattle. Just a little shell outside with just like, concrete, benches. And they were like amazing, but we were like, wow, those guys are really, like that guy has his shirt open, and those guys are like doing sexy gestures. What's going on with that? Because we were like, wait a minute, that's a little bit risque if you ask it. We were kind of young at the time when we saw. We were kind of like, oh dear, this is like woo, and all these girls were just screaming. They were like because it was really something to see. Those guys are something to see. So rock and so like free and so sexual, and so we were like, oh wow. And then the next thing we knew, the album was out, and the next thing we knew, they were huge, and we got to go see them I think it was at the Seattle Center the first time. I saw them about 3 times live, and they were just magical. They were just unbelievably cooler than cool, and you know, they were androgynous. They were like, you know, they were like wood nymphs
Yeah.
on a big rock stage, and they just had that whole magical Tolkien-esque spell weaving uh, capability to just make us create a spell and hold it there. And then they'd have like lasers for no quarter that went straight over the heads of the audience, which at that time everyone was smoking in shows, so the smoke would be rising through the green laser, thing, and it would be like, whoa! It was just so trippy. You felt like you were on drugs, even if you weren't. But they were so good, such a good band. And then they'd walk out and sit on stools and play, acoustic songs like "Going to California," and it was like, what? They're doing that too? They can do that too? So when we started to create our band, that was the benchmark, that was the blueprint. Like, we can rock all the way out, or we could just go acoustic. We'd have all those capabilities because I brought a lot of the acoustic sensibility into the band, and I could also rock. So and then we learned a whole bunch of Zeppelin songs, of course. And when we were playing in clubs, we had to like pare down the amount of Zeppelin we would actually do per night, because it's like, okay, people already started to call us Little Led Zeppelin, it was like, oh, I don't know about that. So we're not a cover band. So, but it was hard to choose between the songs, because there's so many amazing songs that are so much fun to play. So flash forward to the Kennedy Center honors, when we'd been asked to, honor Zeppelin. Of course, it was a surprise to Zeppelin. And it was like, okay, we were on the road, but we had to like get a private and jet over to DC, and with only one rehearsal. And the next day was the show. And so it was a little nerve wracking because it was so cold in DC before Christmas. My hands were really cold, so I was trying to keep them warm as any way I knew how, in order to be able to play the beginning of Stairway all by myself in front of all these dignitaries and God and everybody, plus Zeppelin,
Yeah.
no less, and President, the First Lady, all of it. So anyway, so it was like one of those Zen exercises where you go, I'm going to focus. And
Yeah.
so I focused and started,
Yeah.
not too fast, right? So, and, and so we didn't even see how they reacted until after it was cut together later, when we saw it at home. And I know for a fact that they did get emotional. It was really beautiful how they reacted. But I think a big part of that was also because of Jason Bonham, the son of their former drummer, John Bonham, was on the drums with a bowler hat like John Bonham used to wear. And then there were all these reveals throughout the course of the song, with the smaller choir, and then, the the orchestral part, and then the big choir at the end. And at the end, they all put on their bowlers. And so I think that had a lot to do with how it, it surprised them in their heart of hearts. And no pun, but I think, yeah, and then afterwards, each one of those guys came up to us at our sort of our dinner table, kind of like a governor's ball type situation. Afterward, they each came up and they just said, "Way to go, that was great," And Jimmy Page telling me, "You played that great." I was like, "Oh, I could die now,"
Yeah.
because he's my hero. my muse, and that would be like Joni Mitchell, or a few different ones, but him in particular, I guess. And then John Paul Jones, who we did an album with once called "The Road Home," was really sweet as always. And then Robert Plant said, "Okay, I've learned how to hate this song, but you guys did it justice, and it was a very good version of the song." So each one of them had the greatest reaction. Really sweet, the great guys.
I think it's amazing you said that too, because Robert has said that in the past. He used to go, "Oh, that old wedding song," and because obviously in the '70s it was the
Yeah,
most played song on the radio. You know what I mean? When I was a kid
yeah.
growing up, that was the number one song every year. Maybe Freebird was right behind it. You know what I mean? But it was like, but those songs were so played a lot. But I love that he came up and told you that, because he was obviously moved by it, and I thought that was great. And you guys so nailed it. It was such a beautiful moment. You know what I mean? For rock and
Yeah.
roll, and it was magical. So I just wanted to tell you
Thank you.
that. And
That's how it felt. Yeah, that's how it felt. And the room was with us. I could tell the room was totally with us. You can tell if you're kind of like,
yeah,
but there was like Yo-Yo Ma out there, like grooving, and people just, grooving. So, yeah, really nice, a really beautiful event, and really well arranged by the Kennedy Center musical director guy.
yeah.
Spacing his name, but yeah, he was amazing.
It was what an incredible show that was. I want to get back to the record now too. Now, For Edward is the song that you wrote as a tribute to Eddie Van Halen, and let's talk about that, when you decided to write that song. Obviously, one of the biggest losses in rock history. I mean, Eddie was amazing, and I know that you have obviously had a relationship and played with Eddie before. There's been history just coming up through the years. Can you tell me about the first time that you met Eddie, and what that was like, and did you guys forge a friendship over those years through playing and being on the road? Tell me about that.
Yeah, we sort of wound up in, festival type situations, our two bands together, where, we'd cross paths backstage, we'd cross paths at the hotel, and those guys, and Eddie was one of the sweetest, sweet guys, really sweet person. Him and his brother, they had a lot of like crashy stuff that they had with each other. I guess typically brothers in rock are like that, but they were like, they were kind of at each other's throats half the time, and then they'd have another drink, and they'd get worse, and um, then they'd be hugging and like, "I love you, man," So they were really off the map, but they were very primal, but they were also really cool guys, and so they kind of lured us down into the hotel bar a couple of times to try this out. What is it? It's called a kamikaze. It's like, oh great, oh great. Even the name alone, it's like sounds pretty dangerous. But so they introduced us to the kamikaze, and they were much bigger partiers than we ever were, because we were a lot more demure about trying to be on time and being professional and together about showing up and doing the job. Um but yeah, I ended up giving him his first acoustic, that he played this beautiful song the next early morning over the phone to me, and it was like he'd been up all night, obviously, and it was like, oh wow, like this is a consummate player, this is a consummate musician. He could probably pick up a cigar box with a rubber band on it and make that sound good. He's just one of these incredible musicians who played a lot of his stuff. Most of his stuff was in a very major sort of key, like not a lot of minor bluesy stuff that he wrote or played. He was always kind of a joyful, jubilant chord changes, and like think of Jump, that's very jubilant sounding.
Yeah.
And so when I went to decide that I was going to tribute him in an instrumental song, not unlike what he played over the phone for me years before. I thought, okay, well, I know it has to be in a major key. It has to be, there has to have joy. It has to have joy in it. It has to have a little classical, a little rock, a little classic to end it, because he could do all that stuff. And um, I knew it needed to be kind of short because I'd done score music before, which is instrumental mainly, and you just don't want to stretch the attention span too far, you know?
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, 1 minute and a half, I'm going to do this instrumental and dedicate it to Eddie. And so I told people first that I was going to do that. And then I really regretted it because how am I supposed to do that? What am I going to do? Like, where do I even start? You know, because it's a tall order to tribute Eddie Van Halen, and I realized I couldn't do hammers and I couldn't do pulls and hammers on an acoustic really. So I just had to come up with the general shape of what I remembered his thing was, and it took me weeks and weeks to figure it out, and I was so nervous to even record it because I felt the pressure, you know. But I like how it turned out. It's simple enough, and it's pretty, and I think he'll like it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it'd be great. And speaking of, people that we care about and love and have departed us, let's talk about the song "Party at the Angel Ballroom." This is a great track with Duff McKagan from Guns and Taylor Hawkins, of course, from the Foo Fighters. And tell me how this song came together. And I know about the subject matter, but I'd love you to tell me.
Well, I went over to Taylor's house before we moved to Northern California to sing for him on his solo album, which is great. It's called "Get the Money." The song's called "Don't Look at Me That Way," and so we had fun, and I did a lot of harmonies for him, um, and then when I moved up to Northern California and decided to start this solo project, I texted Taylor and said, "Hey, you got to be on my album too, because you owe me one, right?" So, so he said, "Okay, what are you thinking about?" And I said, "Well, do you have any, I don't know, jams laying around anywhere?" So he goes, "By a matter of fact, I've got this one with me and Duff that we did." Um, so he sent it my way, and I put it kind of through the arrangement, system that I needed to rearrange it just for the sake of the a song structure. But I liked the vibe of the jam, and so then I finished the song and sent it back to Taylor, and he did all this great vocalizing, harmony singing on it too. So the song was a way of kind of making a whimsical statement about all of the rock angels that have left us. And one day I just said, "Oh man, there goes Tom Petty. That's going to be a really good party up there at the Angel Ballroom." So that's kind of where that came from. And then I thought, well, like Fellini movie or something, you could kind of expand the imagery because like they're really up there. They're really partying. There's really waiters in the elevators getting $1,000 tips and stuff,
Yeah.
and nobody gets hurt because they're already in there.
Yeah.
They're already in the Angel Ballroom.
I love that. I mean, I know you mentioned that, when you think about all the people we've lost, Tom Petty recently, Eddie, Chris Cornell, Lane Staley, all those guys, they're so great, and I know that you knew Chris very well, so
Yeah.
just like I did. So I thought that was such a great song. I love the feeling of it, but it's a celebration, which is cool,
Yeah.
of those lives.
Yeah. It celebrates it in a big rock and roll party kind of a vibe, which I think is appropriate to celebrate their lives.
It really is. Does it blow your mind sometimes? I mean, I know that in like the She Rocks Awards and the different things, it's just nice to see whenever, I love to see that you and Ann, are such, you're certainly trailblazers and you're a big influence on so many young rock musicians. I know you sometimes don't like to look at gender because, I mean, you guys would rock male or female. It's not like it wasn't like you were on a lower rung. Like we look at that differently.
Yeah.
Obviously, you and I do. We're not like it's not about male or female. It's
Yeah.
about hey, can you actually do it, right? Which is so great. But isn't it
Yeah.
cool? I mean, I gotta say, Nancy, isn't it nice that when you see some of the new young female guitar players, singers, writers that come up and tell you how much Heart's meant to them and how much they appreciate it? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of my theories is that there were a lot of girls sort of poised to be, singer songwriters and be in bands together. But I think the MTV 80s kind of maybe put it on hold a little while, like for that decade in particular, because then in the 90s, women started coming forward like Sleater Kinney and, you know, cool bands out of the Northwest area and, you know, Hole, from LA area. Just a lot of different girls were starting to be, riot girls, and there's a lot of that starting to happen, and which I was really happy to see because they're going on the road, they're learning their craft, they're digging in, into the culture, and then I think even more recently now, it's really a good time for women, girls like Phoebe Bridgers coming out with all this cool, powerful writing, amazing stuff. Uh, You know, there's just a bunch of them now, and I'm very happy about it. I keep figuring like, oh wow, I think it might have stalled out in the '80s for a while, and now they're kind of here they come. So I'm happy about that.
I think it's a great thing. So, Nancy, I've got to ask you, when things do lift, when things lift, I know COVID, things are slowly starting to open up, and we're still not completely sure, how things are going to play out
Yeah.
in the live spectrum, of things. Can you tell me, tentatively, do you and Ann and the band have a plan to go out, or are you going to do some solo shows for this record for you and me?
Well, the last Heart tour was big and it did really, really well. It was about 58 shows and mostly sold out, which was amazing. We had all female openers like Joan Jett, like Sheryl Crow, Elle King, and a bunch of other ones that revolved throughout the tour for with us, and that was a cool vibe. Right now, there's an offer on the table from Live Nation for Heart to go out in 2022, which I think would be awesome, and really happy if that can happen. And before that, even in July, on the 9th of July, planning to do a solo show um, with Liv Warfield, who's my singer from Roadcase Royale, my last band. Um, we've done a bunch of Heart stuff together, and she can do some of the new stuff with me. Um, and all the players from Heart who are all in Seattle. So it'll be with the Seattle Symphony, July 9th, at the uh, Benaroya Hall, which is a gorgeous performance arts center, all wooden, built for sound, with a big pipe organ in the back. One of those places. Hart did a Christmas program there once, and a couple of things. So I thought, we'll have like charts, and we'll do streaming. We'll have some live audience involved, depending on how the protocol goes then. Um, but hopefully we could expand that show into a few more performing arts centers with local symphony orchestras too. So it's just a fun idea. Can't wait.
Nancy, thanks for
Yeah.
taking the time today. It's great to catch up with you. It really is good to see you. And I'm excited to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too.
Yeah, it's been a while, but this album is awesome, and we're really,
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I love the songs that you chose and the originals as well, and we're really happy to have you on the show. So thanks for taking the
Thanks.
time today. All right.
Well, so good to see you again. And hey, thank you for having me. Thanks for helping out with the new music. And here goes nothing.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
Nancy, we'll speak to you again soon, so we'll see you on the road for sure. Absolutely. So great catching up with Nancy Wilson from Heart. She's got that new album out. It is called You and Me, and you can find it streaming anywhere, however you consume music. I'm your host, Matt Pinfield. For KLOS New and Approved, thanks so much for watching.